we the people of the Gambia, as a sovereign independent state, having had the opportunity to express our views and aspirations on how we wish to be governed, affirm that this Constitution is the embodiment of our will and resolve for democracy, good governance, separation of powers, sustainable environment and equitable distribution and use of resources, rule of law, equality, and observance of the principles of fundamental human rights and freedoms. Being committed to freedom, justice, accountable government, and overall respect for the rule of law, recognize and affirm the principle that all power vests in and emanate only from the sovereign will of the people, which shall be respected at all times. Recognizing the value of the enshrined fundamental human rights and freedoms in this Constitution, undertake to ensure the observance of those rights and freedoms. Recognizing and appreciating our values as a people of diversity, collectively declare and affirm our duties and responsibilities as citizens of the Gambia, and our love and commitment to each other to foster and promote national unity, cohesion, and peace. In this spirit, and in the name of God the Almighty, adopt, enact, and give ourselves and to our future generations this Constitution as a beacon of hope, stability, and national unity, progress, peace, and prosperity. Chapter 1. The Republic and Sovereignty of the People. The Republic. Number 1. 1. The Gambia is a sovereign republic. 2. The Republic is a multi-party democratic state founded on respect for the rule of law and the national values and principles of governance enshrined in this Constitution. Sovereignty of the people. Number 2. 1. All sovereign power belongs to the people of the Gambia, from whom all organs of government derive their authority, and shall be exercised only in accordance with this Constitution. 2. The people of the Gambia may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representatives. 3. Sovereign power under this Constitution is designated by the people of the Gambia to the following state organs, which shall perform their functions in accordance with this Constitution. A. The National Assembly. B. The Executive. And 3. The Judiciary. 4. The organs of government shall exercise their delegated powers and perform their functions in the name and for the welfare and prosperity of the people of the Gambia. 5. The local government authorities are an important institution of the state and shall exercise their powers under the delegated authority of the people. The territory of the Gambia. 3. The Gambia consists of the territory of the Gambia and the territorial waters comprising the Gambia and any additional territory and territorial waters as identified by the Act of the National Assembly. Devolution of Government. 4. 1. The Gambia is divided into 7 administrative areas as outlined in Schedule 1. 2. A state organ shall ensure reasonable access to its services in all parts of the Republic, so far as it is appropriate to do so, having regard to the nature of the service. 3. A local government authority shall ensure reasonable access to its services in all areas it has jurisdiction over, so far as it is appropriate to do so, having regard to the nature of the service. 4. The government and local government authorities shall cooperate and work with each other to promote A. the interest of all Gambians, B. the development of each administrative area or region, C. unity, cohesion, and peace between and amongst all Gambians, D. the ethnic, cultural, and language diversity of all Gambians as a source of national pride and unity, and C. the development and use of local languages, sign language, braille, and other communication formats and technologies accessible to persons with disabilities. National Days. The national days are A. Independence Day, and B. Republic Day. 2. A national day shall be a public holiday. 3. The National Assembly may enact legislation prescribing other public holidays and providing for observance of public holidays. Chapter 2. The Constitution and the Laws. Supremacy of the Constitution. 6. 1. This Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic and binds all persons and all state organs at both the national and local levels of government. 2. No person may claim or exercise state authority except as authorized under this Constitution. 3. The validity or legality of this Constitution is not subject to challenge by or before any court or other organ of the state. 4. Any law that is inconsistent with this Constitution is void to the extent of the inconsistency, and any act or omission in contravention of this Constitution is invalid. Defense of the Constitution. 7. 1. Every person, including every organ of state, has an obligation to respect, uphold, and defend this Constitution. 2. Any attempt by any person to establish a government otherwise than in compliance with this Constitution is unlawful. 3. No person shall, A. by himself or herself or in concert with others, by any violent or other unlawful means, suspend, overthrow, or abrogate this Constitution or any part of it, or attempt to do any such act, or B. aid or abet in any manner any person referred to in paragraph A. 4. Any person who acts contrary to subsection 2 or 3 commits the offense of treason and shall, on conviction, be liable to the penalty prescribed by an act of the National Assembly for that offense. 5. All citizens of the Gambia have the right and duty at all times to defend this Constitution, and in particular to resist, to the extent reasonably justifiable in the circumstances, any person or group of persons seeking or attempting by any violent or unlawful means to suspend, overthrow, or abrogate this Constitution or any part of it. D. 6. A person who resists the suspension, overthrow, or abrogation of this Constitution as provided in subsection 5 commits no offense. Enforcement of the Constitution. 8. 1. Every person has the right to institute court proceedings claiming that this Constitution has been contravened or is threatened with contravention. 2. In addition to a person acting in their own interest, court proceedings under subsection 1 may be instituted by A. a person acting on behalf of another person who cannot act in their own name, B. a person acting as a member or in the interest of a group or class of persons, C. a person acting in the public interest, or D. an association acting in the interest of one or more of its members. 3. The court may make orders and give directions as it may consider appropriate to ensure compliance with this Constitution, and any person to whom any order or direction is addressed shall duly obey and carry out the terms of the order or direction. 4. The failure to obey or carry out any order made or direction given under subsection 3 shall constitute the offense of violating the Constitution, and A. shall, in the case of the President, Vice President, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, a National Assembly member, a minister, or any public officer, constitute a ground for his or her removal from office in accordance with this Constitution or an act of the National Assembly, and B. any other person who is convicted of that offence shall be liable to the penalty prescribed by an act of the National Assembly. Laws of the Gambia. 9.1. In addition to this constitution, the laws of the Gambia consist of a. Acts of National Assembly made under this constitution and subsidiary legislation made under this constitution and such acts. B. The existing laws. C. The common law and principles of equity. D. Customary law, so far as it concerns members of the communities to which it applies. And E. The Sharia, as regards matters of marriage, divorce, burial, endowment, in brackets waqf, and inheritance among members of the communities to which it applies. 2. Subject to subsection 3. A treaty to which the Gambia is a party shall not form part of the laws of the Gambia unless it is incorporated in an act of the National Assembly. 3. The courts may have due regard to international treaties on human rights to which the Gambia is a party where it considers it necessary to aid its interpretation or application of a provision of this constitution with respect to any right or freedom. Chapter 3. National Values and Principles. National Values and Governance. 10.1. The national values and principles of governance in this section bind all state organs, local government authorities, state officers, public officers, and all other persons whenever any of them a. applies or interprets this constitution, b. enacts, applies, or interprets any law, or c. makes or implements public policy decisions. 2. The national values and principles of governance include a. patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power, the rule of law, democracy and participation of the people. B. Human dignity, equity, social justice, inclusiveness, equality, respect for human rights and freedoms, non-discrimination and protection of the marginalized. C. Integrity, transparency and accountability, and D. Sustainable development. Culture. 11.1. This constitution recognizes culture as the foundation of the nation and as the cumulative civilization of the Gambian people and nation. 2. The state shall a. promote all forms of national and cultural expression through literature, the arts, traditional celebrations, science, communication, information, mass media, publications, libraries, and other cultural heritage. B. Recognize the role of science research and indigenous technologies in the development of the nation. And C. Promote the intellectual property rights of the people of the Gambia. 3. The National Assembly shall enact legislation to a. ensure that communities receive compensation or royalties for the use of their cultures and cultural heritage, and b. recognize and protect the ownership of indigenous seeds and plant varieties, their genetic and diverse characteristics, and their use by the communities of the Gambia. Duties of citizens. 12.1. The exercise and enjoyment of rights and freedoms provided for in this Constitution are inseparable from the performance of duties and obligations, and accordingly, every citizen shall a. promote and protect the prestige and good reputation of the Gambia, b. respect the national symbols of the Gambia, c. uphold and defend the Constitution, d. foster national unity, cohesion, and live harmoniously with others, c. respect the rights, freedoms, and legitimate interests of others and refrain from acting in a manner detrimental to the welfare of other persons. F. Serve the Gambia by working conscientiously in his or her chosen occupation. G. Protect and preserve public property and expose or engage in any lawful act to prevent the misuse and waste of public funds and property. H. Contribute to the well-being of the community in which the citizen lives. I. Be loyal to the Gambia and contribute to its defense when necessary. J. Cooperate with appropriate agencies in the maintenance of law and order. And K. Protect and conserve the environment of the Gambia. 2. The courts may have regard to the duties outlined in subsection 1 in interpreting any laws based on them. 3. A person who exposes or engages in any lawful act to prevent the misuse and waste of public funds and property pursuant to subsection 1G commits no offense under any law, including this Constitution. Chapter 4, Citizenship. Citizens on the commencement of the Constitution. 13. Every person who, immediately before the coming into force of this Constitution, is a citizen of the Gambia, shall, subject to this Constitution, continue to be a citizen of the Gambia and retain the same status as a citizen, A. by birth or subject to section 14(2) by descent, or B. by registration or naturalization. Citizen by birth. 14(1). Every person born in or outside the Gambia after the coming into force of this Constitution shall become a citizen of the Gambia at the date of his or her birth, if, at the time of his or her birth, one or both of his or her parents or grandparents is or was a citizen of the Gambia. 2. A person who, prior to the coming into force of this Constitution, was a citizen by descent is a citizen by birth. 3. A child of not more than 8 years of age found in the Gambia whose parents are not known shall be presumed to be a citizen of the Gambia by birth. Citizenship by registration. A person who is or has been married to a citizen of the Gambia and has since the marriage been ordinarily resident in the Gambia for a period of not less than 5 years is entitled, on application, to be regarded as a citizen. 2. A person who has been registered as a citizen under subsection 1 shall, unless he or she has renounced that citizenry, continue to be a citizen of the Gambia if the marriage by virtue of which he or she was registered, A. is annulled or otherwise declared void by a court or tribunal of competent jurisdiction, or B. is dissolved. 3. Subsection 2A shall not apply if the court or tribunal, in annulling or declaring the marriage void, found that the parties at the time of the marriage knew that the marriage was unlawful or fraudulent. 4. A non-Gambian child who is adopted by a Gambian parent is entitled, on application, to be registered as a citizen of the Gambia. Citizenship by naturalization. 16. 1. Any person who has been ordinarily resident in the Gambia for a continuous period of not less than 15 years and who satisfies the conditions set out in subsection 2 may apply, in such manner as may be prescribed by or under an Act of National Assembly, to be naturalized as a citizen of the Gambia. 2. The conditions referred to in subsection 1, that the applicant A. is of full age and capacity, B. is of good character, C. has clearly shown that if naturalized, he or she intends to continue permanently to reside in the Gambia, and D. is capable of supporting himself or herself and, where applicable, his or her dependents. 3. Subject to subsection 4, no person shall be naturalized until he or she has renounced any other citizenship he or she may have and taken an oath of allegiance to the Gambia. 4. A person shall not be required to renounce his or her citizenship if his or her country of origin does not require a citizen of the Gambia to renounce his or her citizenship upon application for naturalization in that country. Okay. Dual citizenship. 17. A citizen of the Gambia by birth may hold the citizenship of any other country in addition to his or her citizenship of the Gambia. Deprivation of citizenship. 18. 1. The minister may revoke the citizenship of a person who has been registered or naturalized as a citizen of the Gambia if the person, A. has since registration or naturalization as a citizen of the Gambia acquired by registration, naturalization, or any voluntary means the citizenship of any other country. B. has acquired the citizenship of the Gambia by means of fraud, false representation, or concealment of any material fact. C. has, since renouncing his or her citizenship to acquire citizenship of the Gambia, voluntarily claimed and exercised in a country other than the Gambia any rights available to him or her under the laws of that country, being rights accorded exclusively to its citizens. D. Has during any war in which the Gambia has been engaged, unlawfully traded or communicated with an enemy, or been engaged in or associated with any business that was knowingly carried on in such a manner as to assist an enemy in that war. E. Has within 7 years after registration or naturalization been convicted in the Gambia or any other country of an offence which carries a sentence of imprisonment of 7 or more years. Or F. Has engaged in an activity that is inimical to the security of the state. 2. Subsection 1 E shall not apply to a naturalized citizen who has renounced his or her foreign citizenship if deprivation of citizenship of the Gambia will render the naturalized citizen stateless. 3. The citizenship of a person who was presumed to be a citizen by birth, as contemplated in section 14.3, may be revoked if A. The citizenship was acquired by fraud, false representation, or concealment of any material fact by any person. B. The nationality of parentage of the person becomes known and reveals that the person was a citizen of another country. Or C. The age of the person becomes known and reveals that the person was older than 8 years when found in the Gambia. 4. Nothing in this or any provisions of this Constitution or any other law shall be construed as depriving or authorizing any person or authority to deprive any citizen of the Gambia by birth of his or her citizenship of the Gambia, whether on account of such citizen holding the citizenship or nationality of some other country or for any other cause. Restoration of citizenship. 19. A citizen of the Gambia who had lost his or her citizenship of the Gambia as a result of the acquisition or possession of the citizenship of some other country shall, on a written notification to the minister, have his Gambian citizenship restored. Act of the National Assembly on Citizenship. 20. An Act of the National Assembly may make provision for A. Registration as a citizen of the Gambia of a person who, on or before 15th November 2019, was born in the Gambia of non-Gambian parents if the person had, since his or her birth, lived in the Gambia. B. The acquisition of the citizenship of the Gambia by persons who are not eligible to become citizens under the provisions of this chapter. C. The renunciation by any person of his or her citizenship of the Gambia. D. Prescribing procedures for the acquisition and revocation of citizenship. And E. Generally giving effect to the provisions of this chapter. Interpretation of Chapter 4, 21, 1. In this chapter, minister means the minister responsible for citizenship matters. For the purpose of this chapter, a person born aboard a registered ship or aircraft, or aboard an unregistered ship or aircraft of the government of any country shall be deemed to have been born in the place in which the ship or aircraft is registered, as the case may be in that country. 3. Any reference in this chapter to the citizenship of a parent or grandparent of a person at the time of that person's birth shall, in relation to a person born after the death of that parent or grandparent, be construed as a reference to that parent's or grandparent's citizenship at the time of death. Chapter 5. Leadership and Integrity. Application of this chapter and guiding principles. 22. 1. This chapter applies to every office and office holder and every authority, both public and private, including civil society organizations, as the context requires, and to every citizen or other person who has or is given, whether on contract or otherwise, a functional role or responsibility in relation to a duty that is in the public interest. 2. This chapter is to be read as complementing the objects and guiding principles outlined in the various chapters of this Constitution, and compliance with those objects and principles shall not in any way preclude the application of this chapter to a public officer or authority or any other person who has a responsibility to the state, the citizens of the Gambia, or the government in a matter of public interest. 3. For the purpose of this chapter, a reference to a public office or public officer shall, as the context requires, be construed to include every office in the service of the state, the citizens of the Gambia, and every person who is elected or appointed to such office, irrespective of how the office or election or appointment to the office is described or designated. Responsibilities of leadership. 23.1. Cognizant of the fact that all sovereign authority emanates from the people, any authority, duty, or responsibility conferred or assigned to a public officer, whether under this Constitution, an act of the National Assembly, or any law, is a privilege and public trust must be exercised in a matter that 1. Is consistent with the purposes and objects of this Constitution, 2. Demonstrates respect for the people and the rule of law, 3. Brings honor to the nation and dignity to the office, and 4. Promotes public confidence and respect in the integrity of the office, and B. Vested in the public officer holding the office the responsibility to serve the people of the Gambia rather than the power to rule them. 2. The guiding principles of leadership and integrity include a. Selection on the basis of personal integrity, competence, ability, and suitability. B. Election to a public office in free, transparent, and fair elections. C. Objectivity and impartiality in decision making and in ensuring that decisions are above board and not influenced by nepotism, favoritism, or improper motive or corrupt practice. D. Selfless service based solely on what is in the public interest, demonstrated by 1. Honesty in the execution of public duties. 2. The declaration of any personal interest that may conflict with public duties and responsibilities. 3. Respect for and holding of the national values and principles of governance outlined in Section 10. And 4. The duty to expose or engage in any lawful act to prevent the misuse and waste of public funds and property. E. Accountability to the public for decisions and actions. And F. Discipline and commitment in service to the people. Conduct and oath of office of public officers. 24.1.1. A public officer shall behave whether in public and official life, in private life, or in association with other persons in a manner that avoids a. Any conflict between personal interest and public or official duties. B. Compromising any public or official interest in favor of a personal interest or the interest of another person. Or C. Bringing the office he or she holds into disrepute. 2. Unless otherwise specified in this Constitution, a person shall, before assuming an office established under this Constitution, subscribe to the prescribed oath. Financial probity of public officers. 25.1. A gift to a public officer on a public or official occasion or on account of the office he or she holds is a gift or donation to the state or the institution he or she represents, and shall a. In the case of a public official in the service of the state, be delivered to the state through the Anti-Corruption Commission unless otherwise exempted, whether conditionally or unconditionally. B. In the case of a public official in the service of a civil society organization, be handed over to the organization for the benefit and in furtherance of the objectives of the organization. 2. A public officer shall neither seek nor accept a personal loan or benefit in circumstances that compromise his or her integrity. Restrictions on the activities of public officers. 26.1. A full-time public officer in the service of the state shall not engage in any other gainful employment unless exempted by A. an act of the National Assembly, or B. the express agreement of the government, whether through service rules or otherwise. 2. A public officer in the service of the state, other than a public officer who is appointed to public office by virtue of his or her political affiliation with a registered political party, shall not hold office in a registered political party. 3. A retired public officer who is receiving a pension from public funds shall not hold more than 2 concurrent remunerative positions as chairperson, director, or employee of A. a statutory body or state-owned enterprise, or B. an organ or agency of the state. Obligations of persons dealing with public officers in the service of the state. 27. A person who enters or proposes to enter into a relationship with an organ or agency of the state, including a statutory body or state-owned enterprise, whether contractual or otherwise, has a duty: A. to act honestly, transparently, and fairly. B. to respect the people and the rule of law. C. to maintain and uphold confidence and respect in the integrity of the relationship. D. not to enter into an agreement or an arrangement that he or she knows will result in a loss or will be injurious to the organ or agency of the state, or the statutory body or state-owned enterprise, as the case may be. E. not to compromise or engage in any activity that will compromise a public office or bring such office into disrepute. And F. not to engage in any conduct to 1. encourage a public officer to abuse his or her public office or to misuse or waste public funds and property, or 2. allow itself to be used to misuse or waste public funds and property. Consequences for contravention of this chapter. 28.1. A person who contravenes section 24, 25, 26, and 27 commits the offense of violating the Constitution. 2. A person who commits the offense of violating the Constitution, A. in the case of a public officer, 1. shall be subject to such disciplinary process and procedure as is applicable in his or her case, and 2. may, in accordance with the disciplinary process and procedure referred to in subparagraph 1, be dismissed or otherwise removed from office, and B. in the case of any other person, shall give his relationship with the organ or agency of the state or statutory body or state-owned enterprise, as the case may be, terminated without prejudice to the right of the state or the statutory body or state-owned enterprise to recover any loss incurred. 3. A person who has been dismissed or otherwise removed from office, or whose relationship with the organ or agency of the state or statutory body or state-owned enterprise has been terminated, shall A. in the case of a public officer, be disqualified from holding any other public office for life, unless an act of the National Assembly prescribes a shorter period, and B. in the case of any other person, be disqualified from having any further or other relationship with the organ or agency of state or any statutory body or state-owned enterprise. Legislation on leadership. An act of the National Assembly shall make provision: A. establishing procedures and mechanisms for strengthening the administration of this chapter. B. prescribing penalties in addition to those specified in section 28 for contravention of the chapter. And C. for any other matter that will ensure the promotion of the principles of leadership and integrity referred to in this chapter, including the effective enforcement of this chapter.